Any questions or comments from council as a whole?
Councilor Calix, if I could just say again, you mentioned this is a reappointment. Kendra Saunders does work in higher education, and so this is a subject matter. She's a subject matter expert, and she's been serving faithfully on this authority for several years.
Any other comments? Any comments from the public?
Yes, I want to know if, when do you put out what the qualifications are for members to sit on these boards?
Well-
Or how do you get your list, are you putting that out there to let people know if they're interested on sitting on the board? I think Amanda just said that Kendra has the qualifications under education. Is that a requirement to sit on that board?
I can answer that, Councilor
yeah,
Calix. It's not a requirement that anyone
Okay.
has any sort of subject matter expertise on any of the boards, commissions, authorities, although it is helpful, and some of them do have professional requirements that professionals do fill a number of those seats, one or two usually, depending on the board, commission, or authorities. All of that information is listed out under city government on the City of Lancaster website, cityoflancasterpa.gov, and we will be working to publicize any
Yes.
new openings that are open for 2023.
And that's what I was hoping that council would make the community aware of openings on boards and what the qualifications are to try to get more people to be involved in sitting on these boards. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. That's very important. So, any other comments from the public? So now I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our full council meeting on the 14th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
And the next item is the nomination of Lloyd Henry for reappointment to the Fire Code Board of Appeals. And Mr. Henry is not here with us tonight. And I don't know if any council member or other members of the committee have any questions or comments.
Councilor Calix, if I could, I do see that we do have our Chief Hutchinson is here with us this evening, who may be able to speak to your reappointment and appointments.
Oh, thank you.
So concerning Lloyd Henry, he's the retired deputy chief for the Fire Bureau and has served on this board for the previous 3 years, and this is just a reappointment for him. He was unable to be here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the committee have any questions for the fire chief? Any questions for the public, from the public? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our full council meeting on the 14th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. And the third item is the nomination of Denise Park for appointment to the Fire Code Board of Appeals. Would you,
Denise is here tonight.
yeah,
Great.
would you come forward, please? Thank you, Mrs. Park, for being here tonight, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Would you share your thoughts about your nomination?
I'm excited to be part of this board. I have been in safety and working with fire and life safety for about 10 years. I work for LGH as their safety specialist. I am currently part of OSHA, so I have a solid background in fire code, and so this is another exciting part of my journey. So
And what do you wish to accomplish in that position?
I'm new to the board, so I'm trying to feel it out and kind of see what comes up. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the other members of the committee? From the public? Okay, now I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on the 14th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Okay, the fourth item on the agenda is the nomination of Gene Duncan for appointment to the Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Mr. Duncan had shoulder surgery today, so he's unable to be here. But he is the facilities manager for Stevens Tech, and also a former counselor for the city of Lancaster.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions from members of the committee?
Chief, do we know if he will be available for the next meeting of council when we will vote on this again?
I believe so, because it was a minor surgery, he said. So I imagine I'll reach out to him tomorrow to confirm. I'll probably make every chance he can to get here if at all possible, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Counselor Calixte, just to clarify, Mr. Duncan is also, he has an emergency services title within the city that we have appointed him to. Can you remind me of what that title is?
I'm sorry, that is correct. He is the EMA liaison for the county, for
Great.
the city. So
Thank you.
any kind of emergency action that's needed, he usually handles that through the county and the city. He's our liaison.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions, comments from the public? None, hearing none. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on the 14th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
And the last item is the nomination of Kenneth Barton for appointment to the Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Barton, for being here tonight, and thank you for your willingness to help, to serve. And what are your goals for this position?
Goal is just to serve on the board and see what it needs. Again, I'm a first-time appointee to it. I retired as a battalion chief in the city of Lancaster in 2018. I served over 34 years, and I'm also a fire instructor, and even though I'm no longer working every day in it, I still continue to keep up with the trends, and I don't let myself be back in the 80s.
Oh, sounds great. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the committee? Any questions from council as a whole?
Counselor Calixte, if I may, Mr. Barton, I just want to thank you for your service to the city of Lancaster for so many years, and your willingness to return and help us in this way in your retirement.
So thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public? Thank you for your service, sir. So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on the 14th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Thank you. So, Madam President, thank you. That's all for the Personnel Committee.
Thank you very much, Counselor Calixte. We then move to the Finance Committee meeting. Counselor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee does have one item on the agenda this evening, and that is Administration Resolution Number 7, 2023, exonerating 2022 water and sewer charges for city-owned and related properties. Director Hopkins, if you may.
Good evening, Council. So this resolution is an annual one that comes in front of City Council. For those of you who are new to City Council, the reason that we do this is we track all of the water usage at all city-owned, and we say city-owned and related because the public library, while it's not a city-owned property, it is related to the extent that we provide this and other in-kind services to the library. And they actually get credit for that when they go through their funding process with the state. So we track the usage on a quarterly or monthly basis, depending on the property, just like we do for any other city water customer. We then, at the end of the year, total up what all of the charges would have been for that individual property, and then we bring this to City Council to exonerate, basically so that we're not charging ourselves for water and sewer services. A couple of things that I wanted to point out on here. One, I mentioned the public library, that the exoneration that we provide here is part of a process each February that I go through with the library. provide them with the information about what's been exonerated. We also provide trash collection services there. That's as on an in-kind basis. They, again, report that information to the state as in-kind services that we provide, and that helps them with their funding. There are then 3 properties on here, 3 accounts that have 0 exoneration amounts, and I wanted to explain what those were because that is not normal. So one, fire station number 3, as you all know, that was under construction for almost all of 2022. It had a new meter installed. The first bill that was actually issued, the first charges that were issued for that property were in January of 2023. So that's why that's a 0 amount. And then for Musser Park and the Mary Kay Dano Animal Shelter, those are on the annual list for exonerations. There were exonerations done at the end of 2021. Somewhere in 2022, there were adjustments that were made to the metered amounts that were, the water metered amounts that were consumption used at the properties, probably because there were higher reads than estimated reads during the year. So there were actually credits on those 2 accounts by the end of the year, which meant that there was nothing to exonerate. And actually, both of those, I looked them up before I came down here, they both still have about somewhere between $1,000 and $2,500 of credits sitting on there, so they may be 0 reads again at the end of 2023. And then the other one that I should bring up is the airport fire line. There is and this is always a jinx in the end of January, beginning of February, that we provide that as an in-kind service to the airport, and in return, they allow us, when it is necessary, to use their huge runway snow blowers when we have had exceptional snowstorms. That has only happened a few times over my career here, but sorry, Steve, it does happen sometimes. That's all.
Thank you, Director Hopkins. One question I have is the current library that's being under construction in Ewell Plaza, were they a part of this exoneration as well?
No, this would have just been for the water services at the property on Duke Street. When they move at some point, and that's probably going to happen at some point during a year, I assume 2023, but I don't know that for sure. There'll probably end up being 2 accounts on here that would get exonerated, so usage at both properties.
And is there an estimation of the dollar amount that's being exonerated of the total properties?
Yeah, so in total, and the total amount is in the title there. So $47,627.40 for water charges and $46,611.33 for sewer charges. And for whatever reason, one, because there are some 0 reads on there, just for comparison purposes, last year, so the 2021 exonerations were $53,600 roughly for water and about $55,500 for sewer.
And does that go back into the budget then, or was this planned to be exonerated?
Yeah, these are always planned to be exonerated. So while the numbers vary a little bit each year, it's very easy to predict that it's going to be somewhere in the $80,000 to $100,000 in total between the water and sewer. And so that we just never make assumptions for that revenue in the budget.
Thank you, Director Hopkins. At this time, do we have any further questions from committee members? From council as a whole?
Councilor Ahmed.
Go ahead, Council President.
Director Hopkins, hello. To just clarify this and sort of put this into some perspective, with the exception of the water only, it looks like, in the airport fire line, and those in-kind donations that we would make, in this case, it looks like just really the library. These are charges to city properties that we would be otherwise simply charging ourselves for. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm characterizing that correctly.
Yeah, and the one I should have pointed out is Central Market. So that is a city-owned property. The operating expenses, generally speaking, are covered by the Central Market Trust as the expenses for that property. But we do the exonerations for water and sewer. That information is also provided to the Central Market Trust for their own purposes as an in-kind
As
contribution.
an in-kind. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Are there any comments or questions from the public?
I just want to know from Council Darlene Byrd, if there any way that you could put this report up so that we can look at it when you are discussing it, because we're not seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So if we could put that up on the screen when you're discussing that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd, and we'll certainly take that in consideration. Are there any other comments or questions from the public? From council? Hearing none, I make a motion to move forward Administrative Resolution number 7, 2023 to our next meeting.
Second.
And from the committee?
And Councilor Ahmed, you can call a vote at that point.
Yeah, so I would like to call a vote to move Administration Resolution number 7, 2023 to our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this does move to our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. We then move to our Community Planning Committee meeting. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning has 4 items on the agenda this evening. First being Administration Resolution 8, number 8, 2023, authorizing a loan from the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Lancaster. And to give us content on that, we have Ms. Emma Hum.
Good evening. My name is Emma Hum. I'm in the Planning Bureau, so I staff the city, but I also staff the Redevelopment Authority and the Land Bank Authority. So we're here with this request for 502, 506 West Walnut Street. It is a vacant and blighted property. It has been through the formal state identified
Excuse me, Ms.
process.
Hum, if I could get you to speak directly into the
Sure.
microphone. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a low talker. All right. So we're here to talk about 502, 506 West Walnut Street. It's a vacant and blighted property. It has been through the Property Reinvestment Board, the Planning Commission, and now sits with the Redevelopment Authority. The Redevelopment Authority has filed a declaration of taking, which would enable us to take the property by eminent domain if it goes through the proper legal processes. The property has been appraised at $315,000. We are required, when we take a property, to compensate the owner for the fair market value of the property. So in this case, $315,000. We are requesting to use the enterprise loan funds to pay that amount to acquire this property. It's been a problem property since at least 2009. And typically the properties that are coming through the Redevelopment Authority, you know, maybe they're appraising at $12,000 or $50,000. So this is definitely a more significant property than we would typically see through the Redevelopment Authority. Are there any questions I can answer?
Councilor Craig, if I may, although I'm not a council member.
You may.
Can you just describe how long this process has taken from the beginning of the Redevelopment Authority becoming involved to the declaration of taking? Because this is something that is significant in terms of private property, and if you could just describe the length of that process.
Sure. So it's my understanding that this property actually went through the full process some time ago, 2009 through 2010 potentially, but the property did not end up being taken by eminent domain. There were minor repairs that were made, and then the property has been sitting since then. It hasn't been occupied. So the actual process that the property goes through, as I said, is identified in the urban redevelopment law for the state. So first, code violations are written up, then it goes to the Property Reinvestment Board, where the owner has the opportunity to enter into, either fix the property, enter into a redevelopment, a rehabilitation plan, which in this case, we had a proposal for a redevelopment plan, but it was not acceptable. It didn't meet the requirements that we'd like to see on a rehab plan. So this has been at least a year in the process. It is a long process to get to this point of being at the Redevelopment Authority. And as I said, it goes through Property Reinvestment Board, it goes to Planning Commission, it goes to the Redevelopment Authority, and all of those boards, have public meetings about properties like this.
Are there any questions from the committee?
If I may, Councilor Craig, can you elaborate a little bit about the process after, if the property were to be approved and acquired, what happens afterwards?
Sure. So once the Redevelopment Authority acquires the property, we would then put the property up for sale. We can either put it up for sale, or we can put it out, like put an RFP, a request for proposal out. So we could identify certain things that we would want to see in the property. We receive use recommendations from the Planning Commission, and so the use of the property needs to be consistent with what the Planning Commission has recommended. In this case, it's a unique property, and the Planning Commission recommended a residential, commercial, or mixed use as generally consistent with the city zoning ordinance, with high consideration to an educational use or daycare facility. So that's the use that we would potentially be looking at. In addition, the Redevelopment Authority actually has an affordability policy, so we would very much like to see some component of affordability if it ended up going to become housing.
Thank you. And just to follow up, so based on those requirements from the Planning Commission, if a developer came in and offered the highest price, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would be able to purchase it, even though they're offering
Correct.
the highest bid?
Right, we're not required to accept the best price. We accept the best offer, the offer that rehabilitates the building, that does it properly. We have a review committee in place, so we're actually bringing in building codes and planning staff to review those offers with us and make sure that, they're realistic. So, no.
Thank you. That's all, Councilor Craig.
Great. Once the building is purchased, is there a timeline that the purchaser has to redevelop?
Typically, our redevelopment contracts are for a year. Again, the typical property that's coming through our board is a single-family townhouse, so it's typically a much smaller scale. In a case like this, we would probably make some kind of different arrangement, a year or 2 years, but that would be determined by the board.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee? Questions from the public?
502, 506 West Walnut Street. West Walnut Street.
Good evening. Derek Birch, 500 block of East Fulton Street. You said it was a loan. So how would the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund recoup the funds that it's going to loan you to purchase the property?
So we would be selling the property back. So hopefully the full value would be recouped when we sell the property to an appropriate developer or community partner. Correct.
Are there any further questions from the public?
Counselor Craig? May I just, a point of clarification, so the appraised value you said was 315,000 to properties that come through the reinvestment board. Obviously, this is not the typical property, but do they usually sell for above the appraised value?
So it will depend on the proposals that come in. If this is a community benefit use, if there's a lot of affordability proposed, then it might be appropriate to sell the property at a lower value. But it will depend on the proposals or, what restrictions council or the mayor would put on that.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, come forth.
Could you explain to me what the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund purpose is? Or could anybody?
Yes. The Enterprise Zone purpose.
Exactly. The loan fund. What is the purpose of the loan fund? How are the monies given out? What is it used for?
I don't have the answer for that, so let me look to the mayor.
I'm looking at Mr. Hopkins. If you want to, or Mr. Delves to respond to that question?
That doesn't work, Darlene. Okay, so the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund was actually set up originally during the Stork administration, so during the 1990s. It was funding that came, I believe all the sources of the original money came from the state to the city to go out to small businesses and other entities within the city. In a particular, there was a definitive enterprise zone, so a particular part of the city. Over the years, all of the original dollars were loaned out of the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund. So now, all of the funds that exist in that Enterprise Zone Loan Fund are repayments of those loans that went out. There were loans that were given, and at times they were either defaulted upon or turned into a grant, which was an allowable use of those funds as well. As of I was looking it up because I thought this question was going to come up. As of now, the current fund balance of that Enterprise Zone Loan Fund is about $2.5 million. This exercise that you're going through this evening is somewhat similar to we did a similar allocation last year of, I believe it was $750,000 that went from the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund to the Curb and Sidewalk Fund that was used for the curb and sidewalk replacements, that pilot program that started in 2022. So the concept here was same type of thing. We are, loaning to another city entity for the purposes of dealing with this vacant and blighted property. Any funds that would come back from the sale of that property would be repaid from the redevelopment authority and go back into the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund. There are still quite a few Enterprise Zone loans that are outstanding. There's a regular, on a monthly basis, there's additional funds that are coming back into the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund. It's to be a revolving loan fund. This is a slightly different purpose for those funds, and that's why the resolution came to City Council.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any further questions from the public? Hearing none, I move that we move this to full council on the 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is Administration Resolution 11, Projection Easement for 347 North Queen Street LLC project. And I think that will be Douglas. Thank you, Douglas.
Hi, good evening, councilors. Good evening, Mayor. So this project was conditionally approved by the Planning Commission as a land development this past December and has since satisfied most of its comments. Just to refresh your memory, this is the 7-story mixed-use building at the corner, southeast corner of East Lemon Street and North Queen Street. So I believe the count is 72 units with ground floor commercial, just to help paint the picture. The public right-of-way easement is one of the last requirements needed for the plan to be recorded and hopefully for construction to commence. And as you've seen recently, this easement typically includes things like, and in this case specifically, footers for the foundation, rooftop coping, which is an architectural feature, and a canopy over the main residential entryway on Queen Street. Because of our zoning regulations that require building to the lot line, oftentimes these projections and architectural features are become a part of our right-of-way. So that's what we're bringing to you this evening to help continue that development pattern, which is prevalent in the city. And also just to assure you that these easements won't cause undue harm to the public. The agreement has been reviewed as a standard by our city solicitor. We've worked with the developer to minimize the amount of encroachment into the public right-of-way, and it extends mostly for a foot around the perimeter of the building. There are key pieces that stick out about 3 feet, and then the residential canopy extends about 6 feet into the right-of-way at a width of about 12 feet. The sidewalk is still 11 feet wide there, so there's plenty of room still overhead, and should still be a spacious right-of-way for our downtown.
Spectacular. Are there any questions from the committee? No? Questions from the public?
He said it's going to be 72 units. Are any of them going to be affordable? And I probably asked this question when it came before council before this last easement, but to refresh my memory.
Just for those listening online, to the best of my knowledge, no, none of the units at this time are planned to be affordable.
And council, do you know if they applied for the LRTA where they would get a tax break to construct these 72 units and none of them are affordable, but they would get a tax break and not have to pay taxes? Do you know that answer?
I can answer that, Councilor
Okay.
Craig, which is that every property that goes through redevelopment, whether it's a commercial property or a residential property, no matter what size, is eligible for LRTA. And that difference is the difference between what the tax is now, which is basically an empty parking lot, and what the tax is in the future. And I think we've gone over this before, Ms. Byrd, in terms of the total cost to the city for LRTA is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'll also just note that there is no public money that is going into this project whatsoever.
Are there any further questions from the public? Thank you, Douglas. Hearing none, I motion that we move this resolution number 11 to full council on the 14th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a review of the Historical Commission's recommendations for 211, 217, 219, 221, and 227 West James Street. And to address this, I think we have Mr. Stephen Funk. Good evening, Mr. Funk.
Good evening. Yeah, in reviewing this application, all applications that come before the Historical Commission, we have to balance the potential harm to historic property and the neighborhood as a whole, and the potential benefits. In this particular case, the Historical Commission recommended approval of almost the entire application, with the exception and the condition that they not demolish the front portion of 227 West James Street. It was the commission's feeling that the loss of that building would be detrimental to the historic neighborhood. The building is a contributing building in the National Register Historic District. And also that there was no counterbalancing benefit to the neighborhood by allowing that property to be demolished. The application proposed, it's called a pocket park on their plan, but it's really nothing more than a grass island between two driveways. And that 227, the building in question, sits between two parking lots. And it was the commission's feeling that the loss of that building would just result in just a sea of parking. It was discussed at the meeting that if a more developed site plan were proposed that would increase the parking, increase landscaping, that might be looked at more favorably by the commission. But as it is now, there's really no benefit to the neighborhood by the loss of that building.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? No? Questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 14th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we will move to the last item on the agenda, review of the Historical Commission's recommendation for 222 Ruby Street. And again, we have Mr. Funk.
This application was quite different from the previous one in that the applicant also proposed demolition of a large portion of the existing building. They provided very, very convincing and compelling evidence that the building was, if not in imminent danger of collapse, it was almost there. The building was very structurally unsound, and that was due primarily to the age of, or the construction methods of the building. It was a cinder block garage, that was just not built to modern engineering standards and was literally falling apart. What set it apart from the previous application was that the owner proposes to build a new building in the same location, basically the same footprint. So it retains a building on that corner. It retains and also adds to the business activity in the neighborhood, which is why that project got a favorable recommendation from the commission.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from committee? Questions from the public?
Counselor Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Funk, can you describe the use of the building at 422 Ruby Street currently, if there is any?
Yeah, I believe that the current owner is using a portion of the building as a motorcycle repair shop. I believe it's only a small portion. The rest of it's just for storage. The building has been deemed to be not really safe for full use.
Okay.
So, which is something he discovered after he purchased the property.
Thank you very much.
Further questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on the 14th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And, Council President, that concludes community planning for this evening.
Thank you very much, Counselor Craig. We move then to Public Works Committee. In the absence of Counselor Walsh, Counselor Kaliks, would you please take these items?
Yes, Madam President. So the Public Works Committee has two items on the agenda for tonight. The first item is the Administration Resolution Number 5 on 2023, authorizing application for a grant extension for school crosswalk lights. So this resolution is adopted by council to authorize the mayor and the city to submit a grant application and a business plan for $970,000 to the Commonwealth Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. So this money will be used for Lancaster City Visitor Center renovation. I think we have here Mr. Director Campbell, who will address that for us.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you very much for having me up. The first item, Resolution Number 5, is regarding the Automated Red Light Enforcement Grant of $105,000 for school beacon flashers, upgrade of 12 of these beacons that are at least 37 years old. This grant had been provided by PennDOT back in 2019, and then after the engineering started and there were some changes, we of course were hit with COVID, and there were some delays in terms of design and construct and what the intention should have been. When that was resolved, it became supply chain challenges. The deadline for getting the work done was November of this past year, and when we submitted to PennDOT for a time extension, because we're literally like 10% remaining of the work that has to be done, they said they're more than happy to accept the time extension, but they need a resolution from the council to be able to extend the time for this contract to April 15th of 2023 in order for us to receive the balance of those dollars.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from the other members of the committee? From council as a whole?
Counselor Kaliks, thank you.
Please.
Director Campbell, you mentioned that these upgrades are in process. There's about 10% of work to be done. Do you know any of the locations of these beacons that are being replaced?
They're basically at the different schools.
Okay.
They're all school beacons so that they alert traffic and pedestrians when other traffic or when people are crossing the street to get to the schools.
Great. So spread around where the schools are.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Director Campbell, when this work is going to be done, what's the deadline, and the timeline for this project?
We're fully expecting that the work will be done by the end of March, but the deadline does take us to April 15th. The time extension that the state asked us to go to was April 15th.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council? From the public?
I'm along with President Amanda's question. Ann Street has two schools, Washington Elementary and Edward Hand School. There is one light sign there that hasn't been working for a while that says the speed limit. Is this something that's getting replaced?
It's a very good question. I'm not 100% sure if that particular fixture is part of this grant, because I don't have the list in front of me. I can get the list back to you, but being able to address that is something that we can actually address. And I do, in fact, if it has not yet been slated, I do invite people to use the Click Fix as a way of alerting us to anything that you feel needs to be done. I do believe that it's probably included, but I need to confirm, and I will get back to you on that.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll move this resolution number 5, 2023 to our next council meeting on the 14th. It's a motion.
So move.
Thank you. All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. So the next item on the agenda for Public Works Committee tonight is the Administration Resolution Number 10, 2023, authorizing a grant application for Welcoming Center renovations. So this resolution is adopted by council to accept a deadline extension for a grant in the amount of $105,000 from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. And this grant is to be used for the upgrade of school flashers, intersection improvements along. That was the other one?
Yes.
That's for the Welcoming Center.
You in fact had read the flasher one. You had read the business plan one for the flasher.
Oh, okay.
That's the other one.
Yes. It's to be used. So this is resolution number, oh, yes. Sorry about that. Okay, Mr.
I apologize, Councilor Cleese. I'm having
I
you leave this
apologize.
committee last minute, so.
Okay, so Mr. Campbell, would you please address this resolution for us, please?
Yes, this is requesting that we submit, that the city of Lancaster be allowed to submit an application and business plan for $970,000 to the Commonwealth Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program for the Lancaster City Visitor Center renovation.
Yes.
The building is about 230 years old. We have been in that facility for a number of years, and there had been some renovation work done 24 years ago as well as 10 years ago, but there are still some challenges and problems. Now that it is also a welcome center, the intention is for the building to be much more welcoming and be made handicapped accessible for users. It's currently been plagued with high utility costs, so the intention would be to replace windows and do upgrades that would reduce our operating expenses for the portion of the building that we actually occupy, and to make it fully handicapped accessible for the public, especially in its new form as a welcome center. The requirement is for us to be submitting not only the engineering work, but a business plan so that the funding The overall funding is approximately 2.074 million. 970,000 of that would be this grant. And the balance, we're making a match of 150,000. And the business plan is to talk about the economic viability of, and the opportunities for going for additional grants as well as other aspects of developing the project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Besides the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, what are the 80 other companies involved in the execution of the project?
There will be fundraising to a variety of levels and Mayor, you may know more of the specifics of the fundraising, but there's fundraising to a variety of different sources. We are continuing, as we have always been doing, or certainly have been doing for the last year or two, looking for additional grants from other sources as well. But the intention being that because it is related to being the welcoming center, the tourist center, et cetera, we believe that funds are relatively easy to come by in order to address the needs of this building.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that Tina and Jen are working and have already submitted, I think, one proposal for the Welcome Center, and we're going to continue to identify other sources of support to raise the match out, with the exception of the $150,000 that the city would put in. I also just want to note that this, the building was affected by a fire last Christmas already, was a year ago.
Yes.
And that caused some pretty significant damage to the exterior of the building, a basement window, and just, we did a lot of work to just get the smoke out of that space. And so there are still additional renovations that need to be done that were related to that fire.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any other questions or comments from other members of the committee? From council as a whole? From the public?
Capital program grants can be used for what?
Capital costs only.
Right.
Only for capital costs.
For the building?
Mhm.
Because of the nature of the building and the age of the building, all of the things that we're talking about, window replacement, ADA upgrades, some HVAC conversion, and as well as the repairs and restoration after the fire are all capital eligible.
And how about the fire insurance that was on the building? Are we using any of that money? Did that money help to renovate, or how much did we get?
So I don't know the answer to that question specifically, Ms. Bird. I know that it paid for the remediation, and it did pay for some of the work, but I think we are holding because there needed to be more extensive repairs, and we wanted to combine that into a bid in totality so that we could get a better price than doing like a one-off thing. Does that make sense?
That is
And then my other question would be, the whole project is gonna cost $2 million? Is that what you said? 2 point?
It's slated at just over 2 million, 2.074 million, I believe. In fact, it looks like that number may come down a little bit because we're looking at alternatives for how the services can be fulfilled.
And there would be no public tax dollars used for this, is that correct?
Yes, there would be public tax dollars. There's $150,000 of city funds that would go into this, as well as state funds that are coming through the redevelopment authority. And then the goal is to raise the other funds privately. So yes.
Oh, okay. So, because, we're very concerned about taxes at this point in time, so we don't want to look at the Welcome Center and see, is there something else we could do that would be less costly? Is it worth tearing it down and building a new one?
Oh, that is the former courthouse, that was the Capitol, that is on the National Historic Register. There is no way that that building is getting torn down.
Okay, I'm just asking because I'm looking for alternatives because, like you said, you're going to use taxpayer money, and when we're really trying to cut costs for taxpayers, where is the priority on the list to make that happen without just rehabbing it at, like you said, you already have some money you can use to rehab it. Is that enough, not enough to sustain it until we get our tax situation under control?
Thank you, Ms. Byrd.
And if I may add to it, the amount of money that the city is putting toward it is approximately 8% of the cost of the work that we're talking about. The rest would be grant or other funds, other funding sources. And being able to support tourism is one of the ways that we actually provide an economically stronger city and more revenue to the city. So even the minor costs that we're spending for capital will very quickly be offset by the revenue generated.
Amanda.
Part of that building was sold to, I think, Crystal Weaver. Have they evaluated that portion of the building to make sure everything is sound, since we're redoing this other section of the building?
So Ms. Weaver is here, but she no longer owns the building. I'm correct about that, correct? Yep, you and Kyle still own the building. So we have, we share walls with the other two sides of this very historic building and have been in communication with them about their planning related to the other uses that are currently or potentially being planned. And that's an ongoing conversation because the capital projects on one side may affect the others, specifically as it relates to the utilities. And that's something that we're continuing to sort out. Which is not the complexity of the situation related to the utilities is something that we do need to continue to sort out, and that is a significant expense. And so that has not yet been resolved because that is a negotiation with Kyle and Crystal.
Are there any other questions from the public? Thank you, Mr. Director Campbell. So, hearing none, I'll make a motion to move this resolution number 10, 2023 to our next council meeting on the 14th.
So moved.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Calixte. We now move to our Economic Development Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. The Economic Development Committee has 3 items on our agenda today, beginning with Administration Bill Number 3, 2023, authorizing the renewal of the Downtown Investment District Plan. And I believe we have Mr. David H.O. here to give us a presentation on the plan.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you very
Bless
much. I'm David H.O., the Executive Director of the Downtown Investment District. As you know, the Downtown Investment District works under municipal authority, and we come to you every time we have to renew a plan. About 5 years ago, we came in with a plan that was a year early from the plan we currently had in place. The reason we did that is because the county had their property reassessment in 2017, and those assessment rates were to take place in 2018. We took a very good close look at the numbers of what the assessed value of properties would do in the downtown. We reduced our millage rate at that time from 2.45 down to 1.57 as where it is today, and it's been there for the last 5 years. We wanted to go show good stewardship to our owners of properties in the downtown, and we put that plan in place. That plan ran for 2 years to see how the overall reassessment would affect our property owners. As we were coming out of that 2 years, we were looking at other alternatives for the plan. We walked right into COVID. And we said, we're not going to do a thing. We're not changing anything as far as millage rates with the new plan. So now we are in the last year of that plan. Some things we've put into place over the last year, one of the biggest things that we're very proud of is we have an outreach worker that we worked very closely with city administration to get that first year to have that person out on the streets. We're now in our second year of that. We're looking for some other grant monies to offset some of those costs. But the woman we have working as our outreach worker in the downtown and beyond the downtown investment district has been very instrumental in the last 4 months of getting 10 people off the street, either into permanent housing or into shelters. She's also been very instrumental working with all the other social service agencies, including Blueprints, that she has gotten 6 people into rehabilitation. So we're very proud of that. Our ambassador program continues in the downtown. Our clean team is also more visible in the downtown because over COVID, while our clean team used to be just during the daytime hours, from 7 in the morning till 3:30, and then you saw the red shirt ambassadors in the evening. One of the things we did during COVID to help with wiping down touch points is we extended the hours of our clean team. So up until now, even today, you will see our clean team guys out in the evening. We saw a great response from our business owners downtown trying to suffer through COVID, seeing cleanliness happening in the evening. So we're continuing that program in support of our businesses. So one of the things, the new plan, and I have, you have a copy of all that in front of you, is we're looking to respond to some inquiries from businesses and owner property owners just outside of our current boundaries. So this new plan is offering expansion areas to continue through the 200 block of West King Street. A lot of property owners wanted to see that, to be part of that, the DID. We're also looking to expand slightly in the southwest corner of the downtown investment district. Right now, the line stops in the first block of South Prince Street. We're looking to expand that into just past Vine Street, some of the businesses, and also St. Mary's Church, and I guess Snyder's Funeral Home just purchased a property there, and they're anxious to be part of the DID as well. So as we're required, we had a public hearing December the 5th. We advertised that to all property owners by letter 30 days in advance. We had our public hearing, and we allowed property owners the 45-day wait period mandated by state law. We received no objections to that plan. That time period ended end of business on January 19th, and we are here today to present the plan to you, and I believe you all have a copy of it. And I presented also in that, I also gave you a copy of the presentation we did for the public hearing. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rachel. Any questions from the committee or council as a whole?
Council Rowe, if I may. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the outreach that you guys have been doing in the downtown investment district. How do you guys plan on expanding on that outreach, especially with some of our houseless population in the downtown?
That is her main focus, reaching out to the folks that we are experiencing homelessness right now. She's also interacting on a daily basis with those who are dealing with mental health issues as well as addiction issues. And she's working very, very closely with all the other agencies in the city to try and get them that help. And right now, the area that has been defined that we work with the city on includes the entire SoWe neighborhood. So we're going down to Carlton Park, we're going down to Brandon Park, and we're also going the whole way out Chestnut and King Street, the whole way out to Broad. So we're out at Reservoir Park as well. And she's also interacting with those that are panhandling, trying to find alternatives for them as well.
Thank you. And my second question is, there's several businesses that seem to have been vacant for going on a few years now in the investment district. Are we looking at any strategies to mitigate those vacancies?
Yeah, I also work for Lancaster City Alliance. I'm appointed as the executive director for the downtown investment district, but other members of the Lancaster City Alliance staff work very, very closely with developers and people who are looking to find retail spots. So we do have team members in place through the Lancaster City Alliance that are working on that very closely to fill those vacant spaces.
Thank you.
And if I may, one other thing I forgot to address is the current millage rate over the next 5 years will incrementally increase. As I said, back in 2018, we reduced our millage rate down to from 2.45 to 1.57, where it is now. Incrementally, over the next 5 years, we will go back up to the 2.45. It is a 0.88% increase in our millage rate over 5 years. So,
Any other questions or comments from the committee or full council? Just to comment on my end, I was very excited to hear more about the housing outreach specialists that you guys included in the Downtown Investment District. Typically, we think about small business and other economic development opportunities in downtown, but making sure that we're assisting the houseless is an important part. So thank you for expanding those services. Also excited to hear that she also goes outside of the boundaries of the Downtown Investment District to include the parks across the city.
and part of her job also is she interacts with our businesses, no matter her entire cover area, giving out business cards. And if they see any issues, feel free to give her a call.
That's great. I'll take any questions from the public.
Councilor Arroyo, may I ask a question first? I'm sorry, I was trying to look up something before I began. I wanted to say thank you for the work, and I appreciate hearing about your outreach worker and those efforts. That's probably the greatest service that you could provide to anyone in the downtown and anyone that has a business in the downtown. I know that's at the top of their mind, so I appreciate that. I'm looking at your presentation, and I just for a point of record in the meeting, can you describe the percentage that the source of fund, your source of fund percentages that actually come from the millage rate versus the contributions that you receive and other sources of income?
The primary budget we have is the resources we receive from property owners, taxable property owners. We have 88 tax exempt properties within this area, and we generally receive about $75,000 as in-kind donations as a pilot to the program. Our services right now are clean, safe, are costing roughly 80 to 82% of our budget. The rest of it goes towards marketing the downtown, our interaction with our businesses downtown through our merchant meetings, and like I said, marketing the downtown and outreach to all the property owners.
Thank you very much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Lancaster City Alliance also does a contribution to the
Yes, they
Downtown
do.
Investment District
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, we have the entire staff of 7, and that whole staff of 7 helps out when they need to.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public?
Okay, Susie Hoover, did you have the 200 block of East King on that list? Or did I mishear you? Thank you.
And I just want to ask a question. I was at a community meeting, I think it was some time ago, it might have been before the COVID, and there was concern about the minority business getting the promotion that they need in downtown. Are you doing anything to address that? I know we don't have too many businesses, but I know of like Blazing Chicken and some other ones that felt like they weren't getting the publicity that other businesses were getting downtown. Is that anything that you can address or plan to address?
I certainly can. As I said, the Downtown Investment District Lancaster City Alliance holds merchant meetings, 11 meetings a year. The only month we do not do it is December. Obviously, everybody's very busy during that month. But during the other meetings we have what we call member spotlights that we offer any merchant who would like to give us a 10-minute presentation on their business. And I know a lot of minority business owners have had that opportunity this past year to do that, and the slated for the rest of this year as well.
Any other questions from the public? If no more, I'll motion to move Bill number 3, 2023 to full council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is Administration Bill number 4, 2023, amending the Articles of Incorporation of the Downtown Investment District. And I believe that this This bill is to update the number of board members to the Downtown Investment District from 9 to 11, from 11 to 17. Did I get that correct? 9 to 17. Thank you. Would you like to speak more on the bill at hand?
I'm Bill McCarty with Barley Snyder. We're the solicitors for the authority. The current articles of incorporation, which are the city's articles, because you formed the authority, provide for 9 to 11 board members. The board members themselves would like to increase that number to 17 in the hope of increasing more participation for actual business owners and residents within the city on that board. So this would mean that you would have to amend your articles of incorporation for the authority for that to occur. So that's what the request is. That's the only change they're asking.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee or full council?
Councilor Roy, if I may. What education are we doing to allow community members to know about the possibilities of joining the board and any work to make sure that it's inclusive and diverse?
It's one of the things we're very particular. We want to make sure that we do have the diverse faces of our community on our board. And one of the reasons we're asking for this addition of board members is the fact that over the last 8 years, we've made some minor expansions to the DID boundaries, and we want to make sure that every corner of the DID is represented on our board. So as we reach out, and if this is approved going forward, to increase that, we will certainly put this out on newsletters to the DID property owners, business owners in the downtown, and we'll also be getting that out on social media as well. That we will be looking for people who want to be part of that, and we'll review those, and then we would submit them through the mayor's office for presentation to personnel committee.
And are these just business owners or are these residents as well?
Residents, property owners, we focus on those who are associated with the downtown, city residents, business owners that have an interest in what's going on downtown, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I hear any from the public?
Keith Holland, 315 West Mifflin Street. Just a question, what's the parameters of downtown investment group? Yes. I can show you a map.
So what I'm showing is the southernmost border of our boundaries right now are at Farm Street. They run as far north as Lemon Street, over to Lime Street, and both sides of South Water Street. The expanded areas we're looking at are including the entire 200 block of West King, and then coming down Prince Street to just past Vine Street.
And that information, I believe, can also be found on the Downtown Investment District's website, correct, Ms. Rachel?
Yes, thank you very much for reminding me. The entire plan we presented to you, and as well as the boundaries, are all on the website, yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I have just one, which is just to say that in order for there to be an expansion of the Downtown Investment District, a certain number of property owners on that block must agree to be in the Downtown Investment District and to participate in the assessment. Is that correct?
Well, almost correct. The way the Authorities Act is set up, you present a plan, we have a public hearing, and the authority also is going out of its way and has public information sessions prior to that public hearing. But the method by which they can approve is to not object. So you have this hearing, there's then a 45-day period in which any property owner may object. And if a third of value, assessed value, or a third of number of properties were to object, then the plan could not go forward. So in this plan, or for this one, there were no objections at all. So that's the manner in which they can do that. But there is an outreach prior to that and taken into account before the authority itself approves the plan.
Thank you.
Mayor, we did do personal outreach to many property owners within both those expansion areas we were referring to.
Because they have a new bill to pay.
Yes, ma'am.
There are no further questions or comments. I'll motion to move Administration Bill Number 4, 2023, to full council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the second item. The final item on our agenda is the American Rescue Plan Act updates. At our last council meeting, I provided an update regarding the Community Facilities Investment RFP. I'm going to go ahead and re-provide that report for the public tonight. A public request for proposals was issued on November 28, 2022. This request for proposal was intended to seek creative, sustainable ideas for projects that enhance equitable outcomes and achieve the following desired outcomes: support public programs with a demonstrated history of success and impact, improve services to city residents, improve quality of life and health for city residents, and improve economic opportunity for city residents. Sealed proposals were opened on January 24th of 2023, and 21 proposals were received requesting approximately $40 million in funding for projects totaling over $75 million. Examples of proposals received include building or renovation of community centers, community health centers, youth centers, libraries, centers for arts and culture, parks, and public places, building or renovating childcare, education, health, and social service facilities. The proposals will be evaluated by the quality of responses in the following areas: project impact, the project plan, cooperation, collaboration, and leverage, organizational capacity, as well as the budget. Once the proposals are ranked based on the above stated criteria, the city will make an award or awards of contracts that maximize the use of funding to meet the goals set forth herein and in ARPA. The city reserves the right not to award any contracts. The city prefers projects or combination of projects that will leverage and maximize the use of the city's ARPA funds with other funding sources to invest in community facilities. That concludes the report. Happy to answer any questions or comments from the committee or full council. Any from the public?
When would we see that decisions would be made on the ARPA? Darlene Bird, when will we see that decisions will be made on the money?
Yeah, it's a good question. The proposals will be reviewed through the month of February. I believe the hope is that in the March committee meeting, we'll be able to announce the awards if decisions are made by then.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? That concludes the agenda for the Economic Development Committee. Council President?
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. We move then to public safety. Councilor Diaz.
Thank you, President. Right now, we have Administration Resolution Number 13, 2023, amending the Civil Service Fire Appointment Rules and Regulations. And I believe Chief Hutcherson is here that can give us an enlightenment.
Good evening. Yes, so the biggest thing that was for the amendment to the civil service appointment rules is we're going to be giving, matching the police, we're going to be able to give the entrance exam online. This will allow people to, the hope is we will set a date when the application's open. They submit their application, and any time in between that, when they submit their application and the end date to the application, they can take the test. So we're eliminating having to travel and having to have more administrators be on site and give the test while we all sit there. The police have done this in the last two, I believe, but it's all done. A third party administers the test, and they're able to watch the person taking the test online.
Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions from council? Any questions from the public? I only have one question.
Sure.
In reference to the test, has that changed in any way for the percentage for the verbal and the physical?
No, it's still the same standards that have been set. That was not changed.
And then if they take the test when they after they take the test and they get approved, then they go out then to do the physical test, correct?
Correct. After they pass the written exam, they're given the chance to go out and perform physical agility.
Thank you so much. I'd like to make a motion then to move forward. This was Resolution 13, 2023 to full council on February the 14th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next Administration Bill 5 of 2023, adopting the updated International Fire Code.
And that just goes from the 2015 International Fire Code to the 2018 International Fire Code. Some of the language has changed through the fire code. It's really nothing that we have, and we're not following all the appendices, which has a lot to do with our infrastructure and water supply and stuff like that. So that was kind of eliminated from the 15 to the 18.
Any questions from the committee? Full council? Public? Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to move this to full council on February the 14th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And that concludes the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. We move to the Committee of the Whole this evening. We have a few items on our agenda. The first is Resolution Number 6, 2023, recognizing Black History Month. That's being introduced by Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. So this month is Black History Month, even though I have Black History Month every month and every day. So, but the theme is recognizing resistance to injustice by African Americans throughout Lancaster's history. So the resolution reads as follows. Since 1976, February has been recognized in the United States as Black History Month. National attention has been focused on history of African Americans, the civil rights movement, and efforts of advance the place of African Americans in society. And whereas the theme of the 2023 national recognition of Black History Month is Black resistance, and whereas Lancaster has been the scene of Black resistance from the days of the Underground Railroad before the Civil War, during the civil rights protest of the mid-20th century to Black Lives Matter's protest of recent years. And whereas William Whipper and Stephen Smith, African-American business owners in nearby Columbia, ferried runaway slaves through Lancaster in special freight railroad cars equipped with hidden compartments in the 1840s and the 1850s. And clandestine Underground Railroad conductors led fugitives to and from hiding places in Lancaster. And whereas members of Lancaster's Black community and their white allies persist in organizing to resist unfair practices in housing, education, employment, including Abraham Polite, Marianne Gibbons Brubaker, Laura Carter, who organized the Lancaster branch of the NAACP in 1923, Fred Reed, the first Black male teacher in the school district of Lancaster, all those who served as presidents of the NAACP Lancaster during the important years of the resistance in the 1960s, including Reverend Philip Aku, Robert A. Cooper, Ashley S. Dudley Jr., that doesn't sound right, the Reverend Alexander L. Stevens, Kenneth Boast, Reverend Ernest Christian, and Kenneth H. Abernathy, Betty Tompkins, publicity secretary for the NAACP, and Ruby Cook, Bohe Payne, who served for nearly 30 years as the leader of Crispus Attucks Center. And whereas Black leaders in the academia both created and documented Black history in Lancaster, including Hazel I. Jackson, who held her own quiet protest, spending Friday afternoons in 1950 outside the office of the School District of Lancaster Superintendent before being hired as district's first Black female teacher in 1961. Dr. Rita Smith Waddell, who founded the African American Studies Program and female teacher and program and the Black Culture Celebration at Millersville University. Dr. Leroy Hopkins, who through his research, lectures, and articles in the Journal of the Lancaster County Historical Society, has elevated the Black history of Lancaster, and schools in Lancaster were later renamed in honor of Hazel I. Jackson and Dr. Rita Smith Waddell. And whereas Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, founded in 1817 and incorporated in 1848, and other religious congregations of predominantly Black members have provided spiritual, social, civic support to Lancastrians, and before the Civil War, to Black freedom seekers traveling through Lancaster under the protection of the Underground Railroad network. And whereas in one of Lancaster's first known civil rights era protests, Black and white youth staged a lunch counter sit-in at the Old Brunswick Hotel in 1937. Okay, I think I'm missing something here. I think that's it.
Nope, it keeps going. Would you like my screen?
Yeah, because I'm not sure what's going on with mine.
This is a lengthy resolution.
Thank you. Be patient.
There was a lot of resistance, so this is important.
Okay.
This doesn't touch, so.
Okay, where's it at?
You are.
Okay, here I am.
You are there. Just scroll over through, yeah. 2 fingers, there you go.
Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to move this a little closer. Whereas in the summer of 1963, the Lancaster branch of the NAACP, Association for the Advancement of Colored People, organized protests of downtown Lancaster's department stores over discriminatory hiring practices because Black employees at those stores were relegated to jobs as janitors and elevator operators. And whereas that same summer, the NAACP members were joined by members of local churches in marching outside the Rocky Springs Park pool, which the park owner refused to resegregate. That's really small. Even after court ruling, and whereas Henry Norwood, Barney Yule, national and international champion in track and events, and winner of 1 gold medal and 2 silver medals in the 1948 Olympics, was recognized by the city of Lancaster in the naming of Yule Plaza. And whereas Black Lives Matter protests held loud public protest in downtown Lancaster following the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police officer in 2020. And whereas Lancaster has long been a place of welcome for those seeking religious liberties and has sought to live up to the principles of liberty for all. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Lancaster that during this Black History Month and every month, City Council calls on all Lancastrians and to respect and honor the sacrifice of those who have struggled for the rights of African Americans for justice and equality. Woo! Okay, thank you. That was rather long, but well worth it.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. I'll just make a note that that resolution was drafted with the help of the local Lancaster chapter of the NAACP, and those members have been invited to join us on the 14th, when, here in a second, we'll be putting this on our, I expect, we'll be putting this on our agenda for that meeting, and we can present this to them there. Are there any other council comments on the resolution? Or from the public? Right. I'll hear a motion to move this to full council on the 14th.
Second.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Harris, we haven't had a lot of committee of the whole since I've become council president. Can we take this by acclamation?
We can do this by acclamation, yeah.
Terrific, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Again, this will be on the agenda on the 14th. I appreciate you, Councilor Craig.
Absolutely.
All right, our next item is resolution number 12, 2023. This is authorizing a flag raising for at City Hall for Juneteenth. So you may be asking yourselves why we're talking about Juneteenth when it's January. I will remind those who are watching or in attendance that last year, council passed an ordinance that was in compliance with a national, I believe a Supreme Court decision that required greater scrutiny and a public process for approving flag raisings. So we took that opportunity to do that at that time. The process was set that we needed 120 days notice to raise the flag. And so that's why we're considering this resolution, that it would allow for the Juneteenth flag raising to happen approximately 120 days from now. Any council comments or anything else that I missed from the administration? It's pretty straightforward. Comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll hear a motion to move this to full council on the 14th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Similarly, we're looking at resolution number 9 of 2023. This is approving a flag raising for excuse me, I lost my page, for Dominican Independence Day. This particular resolution does have a date that's outside of or inside of the 120-day window. We are being asked to consider this as an exception because it is a new rule that we enacted last year. The city has done a lot of outreach with groups that have done flag raisings in the past, and in this case, we just weren't able to reach them in time for their 120-day window. So you may notice that this falls outside of that, and we're still able to approve that. Any other council comments or anything that I'm missing in this resolution? Okay. Hearing none, I'll hear a motion to move this to full council on the 14th.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. And also, to this end, resolution number, we'll have a whole bunch of these, I suspect, this year. Resolution number 14th, 2023, authorizing a flag raising at City Hall for Pride Month. Again, that's going to be in June. We're within that 120-day window. So this is our procedure to allow them to do the flag raising. Any council comments on the resolution? Comments from the public?
When you make the resolutions, can you say the dates that the flags are going to be? Because it would be
Sure.
public and people are watching and it might just draw people down.
Absolutely. So I'll just mention for this one in particular, the date is June 1st with a backup date. They each have a backup date for weather, so the backup date is June 2nd in this case. I can do that. Yes, absolutely. Any other comments from the public?
Keith Holland.
Mr. Holland.
Excuse my ignorance, but flag raising, could you explain that to me? Because
Sure.
as an American, I'm just lost on that, and as
Absolutely.
an ex-military, I'm lost.
Mhm.
Please help me out.
Yeah, there are occasions at which the City Hall would fly a flag for another organization to celebrate an event. For instance, Dominican Independence Day, for Juneteenth, Pride Month. There's several others that come up throughout the year. There had not been a formal process to approve these in the past, but back in 2022, there was made a formal process. Part of that process says that the organization needs to reach out within that time period. The flag that they fly needs to be approved by the city to make sure that it's nothing that's, spewing hate or something like that. So it would be in line with what's able to be flown. Any other public comment on the resolution? Hearing none, I don't know if I already said this or not, but just in case, I'll hear a motion to move this to full council on February 14th.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That concludes the committee of the whole this evening. Just because of the length of time that we've been at this because of our special meeting, Mr. Harris, would it be okay if I asked you to submit your clerk's report to us in writing?
It has already been submitted.
Thank you very much. Then, having concluded our committee meeting business, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.